Hello everyone, it's Foo here, and today I've got a really fun strategy that's way more viable than I ever thought it could be, which is looking at the new move Lash Out, introduced in the Isle of Armor DLC with the move Tutors. It's a base 75 power dark type move that doubles in power if your stats are reduced before you move that turn. I've put together a really fun strategy that I had so much fun using. This is so cool and I can't wait to share the team with you, but I thought the best way to explain how it works is really just to show you what happens. Quickly before we get into the battles, I'm approaching 60,000 subscribers, so it would be really neat if you could subscribe for more content because I've got some really cool strategies coming up. But first, this one. In this first one, my opponent leads with a Dragapult and a Mudsdale. I thought this could be a really weird, like, beat up stamina Mudsdale strategy, which I'd not ever seen before, but that could be really cool. As I lead with an Incineroar and Dusclops, who these two are the main guys for this strategy. These guys are the dream team. So I know that they're pretty common. But just wait to see the power that comes with them because it's really cool. So my opponent is Dynamaxing their Dragapult. I was really worried that Dynamax Mudsdale might come out with that beat up strategy. I would really struggle against that with this team because it's very physical based, like a lot of physical attackers. But fortunately they Dynamaxed their Dragapult. I'm able to prevent the Mudsdale from attacking by going for a fake out with my Incineroar as I try to set the Trick Room up with my Dusclops, knowing that I should be able to take any max attack that might come out of the Dragapult. So whatever this max Phantasm is, I should be able to take it with Dusclops because it's just that bulky. And you see that that is fine. I'm able to survive that, and I can set the Trick Room up this first turn. And that's basically the main setup that's required to put you in a position to do some serious damage. So this is just so cool. So anyway, we've gone for the Trick Room, and now we can go straight for the Bulldoze, as my opponent is actually switching out their Mudsdale into Primarina, which I thought was a bit weird because obviously Mudsdale has a good matchup here. But again, it was intimidated, and Primarina also matches up really well against my team. So I kind of understand that if they just want to reset the Intimidate. They also switch out their Max Dragapult, which was crazy, but bringing in an Arcanine, which again has a really good matchup. I guess that they were worried about dark type attacks coming from the Incineroar, and to be fair, they should have been, because what I do now is go for a Bulldoze, which is super effective against my Incineroar, and it activates my weakness policy. So that's really good. I get +2 attack and +2 special attack. Special attacks are relevant. It also breaks any potential sashes on the opponent's side of the field by doing a tiny little bit of damage. And it also reduces my speed, which is great in Trick Room, and also doubles the power of my Lash Out. So this becomes a base 150 power move, which is way more strong than most max moves, and can one-hit KO an Arcanine. And that's only at +1 attack because I already had the Intimidate. So anyway, Mudsdale comes in here. Because I got the speed drop the previous turn on my Incineroar, it does mean that my Incineroar is slower than Mudsdale, so I get my attack up before it, and I actually have Thunder Punch on this offensive Incineroar set that absolutely no one sees coming. And with that +1 attack, and with the Nightshade damage, I'm able to take out Primarina. Unfortunately, Incineroar goes down, but that's kind of part of the plan, because the point of this Incineroar is to do massive damage with Lash Out early in the battle, so that you can get some early KOs. Your opponent hopefully uses up their Dynamax because you've got fake out pressure at the beginning. They worry about flinching and use their Dynamax early. And that means that you can then clean up with your own Dynamax, or in this case, Gigantamax, at the end of the battle when they don't have any defense against it and they've already lost some Pokemon. So that's kind of the idea behind the team, and this battle demonstrates that pretty nicely. I can go for my Gigantamax Rillaboom here. It's actually a really bulky Rillaboom with the Assault Vest. Doesn't have max attack, it's just very bulky, but because it does have Gmax Drum Solo, it's a base 160 power move, so I mean it does insane damage whether you've got attack investment or not, and it's just going to be able to one-hit KO this Mudsdale. Obviously it's super effective in grassy terrain. So this all worked out very well. I've still got 3 Pokemon against their Dragapult, so I'm in a pretty good position, and spoilers, I win this one. But yeah, this I thought was a really good example of how this strategy works. So it's the synergy between Trick Room and Bulldoze and Lash Out. So once you go for the Bulldoze, you get the +2 from the weakness policy, and you get the double power Lash Out, and it's just ridiculous. It's like more powerful than a super effective max move, and it's really, really cool. So why I think this is so great is that you can basically one-hit KO even some max Pokemon. So things like Max Cinderace, I know that you can get the one-hit KO on Max Cinderace, which is crazy, as long as it hasn't changed type to a fighting type, which it may well do. But yeah, it's really, really strong, and it allows you to do so much damage. What's also cool is the Thunder Punch on the Incineroar. Very few people see coming, and it's at +2 attack. It's able to get the one-hit KO on Primarina. It one-hit KOs most Togekiss, because a lot of them are running a bit more special attack at the moment to take on Rillaboom, which is now the most used VGC Pokemon. Who saw that coming? I mean, he is great, and I'm using him on this team. But another reason why Incineroar is a very good sweeping Pokemon to have on a team. So that's just a bit of background around the team. I thought that I should probably show you a few more battles just to prove to you guys that this does work pretty consistently. So I've got another one here. So in this second battle, my opponent is wearing a very fetching leather jacket as they send out a male Indeedee and a Dracovish. And male Indeedee is interesting to see. Obviously, it's got the Psychic Surge, so that will prevent my Fake Out from coming out. My Incineroar is threatened by the Dracovish, and also male Indeedee has Imprisoned Trick Room as an option, and seeing my Trick Room team, I'm guessing that male Indeedee does have Imprisoned Trick Room, so they'll try to stop my Dusclops from setting up Trick Room that way. We can see Choice Scarf on the Dracovish, so it looks like they're probably just going to spam Vicious Rend, which means this turn I'm going to switch out into my Rillaboom, which is a pretty nice switch from me because it allows me to set up grassy terrain, meaning that if Indeedee does go for an Expanding Force, it's not the spread damage. Also, it means that if Vicious Rend comes out, obviously I can resist that on my Rillaboom, which is really nice, and it still does like a lot of damage, but at least I know that Rillaboom can take it. As I just go for a Nightshade, I do see the Imprison coming. As I say, male Indeedee with Imprisoned Trick Room is a pretty good stop to most Trick Roomers, but it allows me to get some damage on the Dracovish, which is pretty nice there. Now this turn I want to use priority moves so that Dracovish doesn't get double damage Vicious Rend on either of my Pokemon. So I decide to go for a Grassy Glide with my Rillaboom into the Dracovish slot. Unfortunately, it switches out into Arcanine, getting Intimidate and also resisting Grassy Glide, so that's not ideal. And I also go for an ally switch with Dusclops. Now, that's not because I'm trying to misdirect the attack here, it's literally just because I want to use a priority move, but I know that this is a cancel move, and I'm sorry for using it, but it's effective, so I don't apologize too much. So anyway, the opponent's got their Arcanine and the Togekiss in, and this is a really, really bad matchup for my Rillaboom now, so I definitely want to switch that out. But they've also switched out their Indeedee, which was imprisoning me for Trick Room, but they switched it out, so now I can go for a Trick Room as I switch in the man of the hour, Incineroar, coming back, getting that Intimidate on the Arcanine in case it wants to do any threatening things, but actually it's a special Arcanine, so it's still going to do some damage, but not very much at all. I've got especially defensive Dusclops, and I resist with Incineroar. As the opponent goes for a Dazzling Gleam, they do get a critical hit on Incineroar, which is not ideal. It takes me below half, but I am able to get my Trick Room, so Incineroar is now in a position to abuse that and do some serious damage, which is really, really fantastic. So also, another synergy on this team to note, once I've set up the Grassy Surge, Bulldoze does less damage, so it means I'm doing slightly less damage to my Incineroar, which is very nice, but I'm still able to, you know, activate the weakness policy and get the speed drop for Lash Out. The opponent does change the terrain anyway, so it doesn't really matter this turn. I'm going to do the normal damage, but Dusclops is weak anyway, so that's not a problem, and it's been intimidated. So I go for the Bulldoze to get the weakness policy activated on the Incineroar, and what I'm going to go for here, actually, I wanted to just get some damage on the Togekiss because it seemed to be quite offensive, doing a lot of damage with its Dazzling Gleam, so I just went straight for a Thunder Punch into it, and it one-hit KOs the Togekiss. I think most Togekiss are more offensive now because of Rillaboom, but that's really, really cool to see. I looked at the calc, and if it's like max HP with no defense investment, you do have a very good chance to one-shot Togekiss. So now the opponent brings back in their Dracovish. They're wanting to Dynamax it, presumably just wanting to be able to live a hit and get more powerful moves off. It does make sense because Fishious Rend and Trick Room won't be double damage, so it makes sense if they want to maybe go for some max Geysers or maybe reduce my attack with Dragon type max Wormwind. I go for the Bulldoze again, but obviously I've not got a weakness policy to activate here, but I can go for repeat Bulldozes just to get that speed drop on Incineroar, which then allows me to go for another Lash Out. And you can see here that a +2 Lash Out just takes out the Dracovish from there, so that Nightshade damage earlier on in the battle was super crucial. I think it was super crucial. I'm not sure, maybe Lash Out would have just one-hit KO'd Dracovish, but I doubt it. I think that Nightshade damage allowed me to get that one-hit KO. Now, the Indeedee's just reversed my Trick Room, which is kind of annoying, but knowing the Pokemon they have left, I think these are much more passive, even though we have seen the Life Orb on the Indeedee, so that might not be the case. But Arcanine really can't touch my Pokemon very much at all here, so I'm just going to go for a Lash Out and take out the Indeedee as I try to set up the Trick Room again. And on this last turn, the Indeedee actually decides to go for an Imprison, which definitely wasn't the right move because I can just take it out with a Lash Out here. I'm +2, well, I might be neutral attack now actually. After 2 Intimidates, I think I'm neutral attack, but Indeedee has really poor defense and despite my Lash Out not being boosted in power this turn, it's still enough to take out Indeedee, and I can just go for a Trick Room the same turn because the Imprisoned Pokemon has gone, and there's no way that Arcanine, that looks very passive, can take on the rest of my Pokemon. Just a quick point there, that it's a really good demonstration of how Incineroar shuts down a lot of the Psychic Spam teams very nicely. Basically, any Dark type does this pretty well because the Expanding Force teams, they just can't hit it very much, and paired with especially defensive Dusclops, you're pretty safe leading Dusclops Incineroar against Psychic Spam, which is pretty great. But another common archetype that you're seeing a lot is Rain, and you'd have thought that this team doesn't have a great matchup against Rain. So let's have a look at a match against a Rain team to see how that goes. My opponent leads with Politoed and Rillaboom, as I'm sending out my Dusclops and Rillaboom. I definitely didn't want to lead with Incineroar in case they did just lead with their Rain leads. They had Politoed and Kingdra. So yeah, they're very common and you have to expect that. And this is how I would lead here. I've got Fake Out Pressure with my Rillaboom and I've got my Dusclops on the field, so I can go for the Trick Room if I need to. It's especially defensive, so it could take on that double water lead if they had led it. But what I'm going to do here is switch straight into my Incineroar, despite the Politoed still being on the field. In that slot I had a Rillaboom, so I really doubt that they're going for a water type move right now. I would expect them to do something very different, and they go for a Fake Out into my Incineroar and go for an Icy Wind, maybe wanting to ensure that their Rillaboom outsped my Rillaboom, or maybe just wanting to get some super effective damage that way. But it works out great for me because obviously I am a Trick Room team, so reducing my speed is only making me stronger. So that worked out pretty well, and now obviously Politoed is still quite a threat, so what I'm going to do is go for the Bulldoze Lash Out play into Politoed. Though I do have Thunder Punch, if you get a boosted Lash Out, it's more powerful than super effective Thunder Punch because it's basically the same power as super effective Thunder Punch, but then you get same type attack bonus on top of that, so it's just such a strong attack. So I get my Bulldoze off, I get my weakness policy, and I get the speed drop to boost the Lash Out power, and I break any potential sashes, and I can go for the Lash Out. It looks awesome, and we can just one-hit KO this Politoed, which is so fun to see. I just love that. It is such a strong attack. If the opponent doesn't resist it, then they're probably going to go down because it's that strong. So now my opponent brings in their Rillaboom. Makes a lot of sense. They probably want that Fake Out pressure, and Kingdra's looking really scary, but it doesn't scare me. I'm going to wiggle my Mohican and just Dynamax my Incineroar right in front of them because I'm pretty sure that with +2 attack, I can still do a ton of damage. Even though it's raining, I'm going to go for a Max Flare into their Rillaboom to see how much it does. Whether they're a more offensive Rillaboom or a more bulky Rillaboom, it remains to be seen. Now, They are also going to Dynamax their Kingdra. It's very threatening. I think what they're expecting is going to go down this turn is they fake out my Incineroar, it flinches, and they get a big Dynamax attack off with their Kingdra. What I'm hoping is going to happen is that they're going to go for the fake out, but I'm still going to get my attack off, so I can just go for a max flare and change the weather to sun, so that hopefully Incineroar can then live any water type move that the Kingdra might want to go for. So you see the fake out does come there. I actually one-shot the Rillaboom. I'm not sure if that was because it was like just an offensive Rillaboom, or whether it was like, or whether I just take it out anyway. I mean, the +2 from the weakness policy kind of cancels out the rain, and it's still a super effective max move against the Rillaboom, so I would expect it to do a ton of damage and maybe one shot even if it was quite bulky. The Kingdra didn't actually go for a water type move. They went for a max Whirlwind, so that's pretty good for me. I mean, it does reduce my attack, but it means that the sun stays up, so the Kingdra really is not very threatening at all right now. And they have Scizor as their last Pokemon, and that means that my Incineroar is going to have a very good time here. They go for a Bullet Punch, presumably knowing that their Scizor is doomed and won't get an attack off this turn, because even if it protected, I think a +2 sun boosted max flare would have KO'd the Scizor through a protect. So that goes down, and the Kingdra has to go for a max geyser here, basically to try to get some super effective damage on Incineroar, but the sun's up, so I am able to survive, and that's pretty great. I mean, it starts raining now, but it's a little bit too late for this Kingdra. So this goes slightly against what I said about how I usually use Incineroar to do massive damage at the beginning of the battle and then have my Dynamax Pokemon in the back. You can see actually Incineroar is still a very good Pokemon to Dynamax. Thunder Punch is nice as well because it gives you an option to set up electric terrain in case Amoonguss is there threatening your Trick Room team, which would not be very nice. So you can set up that electric terrain, and yeah, it's just a good time. I mean, Incineroar was able to beat this rain team with the max darkness at the end there, taking out the Kingdra. So that was really, really fun. And the team was pretty successful. I think a lot of people don't see this coming. A lot of people don't expect the offensive Incineroar. I think most people see Incineroar and expect, you know, the fake out parting shot, maybe dual stab, maybe taunt. The Lash Out is just an insanely powerful move. Just a note that I did try to work this team with a Bisharp because I think it's a bit cooler and would have more style points. But I found it really hard to work, especially because like Urshifu means you can't even protect against fighting type moves, which sucks so bad. And you've got a load of other things like fire types and things. And it's just generally not as bulky as Incineroar. It doesn't have Intimidate, and it doesn't have that fake out, which really helps you get up the Trick Room at the beginning of the battle. So I had to run more supporting Pokemon to get Bisharp to work, but then it's not even my Dynamax Pokemon, so I didn't like that one as much. I think another really good user is Tyranitar. Like, you see Tyranitar running Lash Out a lot, even just instead of Crunch, like even outside of weird Bulldoze teams like this, it's a very good option for Tyranitar, and it always holds the weakness policy anyway. So I think Tyranitar is another really good option, but I think Incineroar works so well because of that fake out pressure and because people don't expect it to be a really offensive Pokemon. So definitely give this team a try. I can't emphasize how much fun it is to one-hit KO Dynamax Pokemon with a non-Dynamax Pokemon with a neutral hit. Like, you just don't see that happening. I absolutely love it. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. We're almost at 60,000 subscribers, so it would be really neat to hit that soon. All that's left to be said is I've been Foo, you've been awesome, and hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.